Let me ask you something uncomfortable. How many times has a woman told you, "I'm not ready for a relationship," and then months later she was suddenly ready, just not with you? How many times have you heard, "Money doesn't matter," only to watch her lose attraction when your momentum slowed? There are 6 phrases women commonly use that sound harmless, even reassuring, but carry a completely different psychological meaning underneath. Men don't get hurt because they love too much. They get hurt because they decode wrong. In this video, I'll show you the 6 lies women tell men, not to attack them, but to expose the emotional logic behind them. And once you see it, you won't be fooled by softness again. I'm not here to attack women. I'm here to translate what most men were never taught to see. As a woman, I understand why these phrases are used. And I also understand why men misread them so easily. If you want to become the kind of man who evaluates patterns instead of clinging to promises, like this video, subscribe and sharpen your perception. Now let's start with the first lie. Number 1, I'm not ready for a relationship. She usually says this after a few weeks, maybe a couple of months. The chemistry was there. The dates felt promising. You thought momentum was building. Then one evening, in that calm, almost apologetic tone, she says, "I'm just not ready for a relationship right now." And you nod. You tell yourself the timing is off. Maybe she's healing. Maybe work is stressful. Maybe she just needs space. So you stay patient. You stay understanding. You stay available. Let me separate something most men blur together. Readiness and desire are not the same thing. Readiness is logistical, desire is emotional, and real desire does not wait for perfect conditions. When a woman genuinely wants a man, time compresses. Obstacles shrink. Schedules rearrange themselves. She doesn't hesitate. She accelerates. That's how attraction behaves when it's alive. It moves toward, not away. So what does "I'm not ready" usually mean? It means she doesn't feel enough desire for you to override her fears, doubts, or distractions. And instead of saying, "I don't see you as that man," she chooses a softer exit. Not because she's evil, but because she doesn't want to feel like the villain in your story. This is where the emotional engine comes in. Women are highly attuned to social perception. Being seen as cruel, shallow, or heartless creates internal discomfort. So the rejection is wrapped in silk. "I'm not ready" sounds temporary. It sounds fixable. It leaves the door slightly open, just enough so she doesn't have to slam it. And without realizing it, you accept a role. You become the emotional buffer, the safe presence, the man who listens, the man who waits, the man who proves. This is where men trap themselves. You think, "I'll show her. I'll be patient. I'll build trust. I'll prove I'm different." But attraction is not a loyalty program. It doesn't grow because you accumulate points. The more you try to convince someone to choose you, the more you silently confirm you weren't chosen in the first place. And here's the truth most men resist. When a woman wants you, hesitation disappears. When she hesitates, you're optional. Optional men wait. Chosen men don't have to. So what do you do instead? You observe. You don't argue her words. You don't negotiate her timeline. You don't audition for a position that was never open. If she's not ready, you respect it and you step back. Not in anger, not in resentment, but in clarity. Because a man who knows his value does not beg to be selected. He watches behavior. He responds to energy. And he understands that real desire doesn't need convincing. If she's unsure, that's your answer. Number 2, money doesn't matter to me. This one sounds pure, almost noble. She says it gently, maybe even proudly. "I don't care about money. I just want someone real." And if you've ever feared being valued only for your wallet, those words feel like relief. Finally, someone who sees your heart. But listen carefully. When a woman says money doesn't matter, she is not rejecting wealth. She is rejecting obsession. She is rejecting a man who worships status, but neglects presence. What she's actually evaluating is something much deeper: competence, direction, stability, momentum. Money, in her psychology, is rarely about luxury. It's about safety. Not gold digger fantasy safety. Nervous system safety. The kind that whispers, if life gets chaotic, this man won't collapse. Understand this clearly. Security is ancient. Long before modern dating apps, survival depended on resource control. And even today, that wiring hasn't disappeared. It just evolved. She doesn't need a king, but she does need a man who can steer a ship. And this is where men misunderstand her. You hear, money doesn't matter, and you relax. You think effort isn't urgent. You tell yourself ambition can wait. You assume love alone will compensate for stagnation. But attraction does not thrive in stagnation. She might support you when you're building something, when you're climbing, when you're grinding toward a vision. That phase feels powerful. There's movement. There's growth. There's hope. But if building turns into drifting, if ambition turns into excuses, if years pass and nothing changes, her attraction won't disappear overnight. It will erode. Not because she's materialistic, but because she subconsciously reads stagnation as weakness. She doesn't worship money. She trusts momentum. Momentum signals leadership. It signals resilience. It signals a man who can absorb pressure without folding. And that energy is deeply attractive. The danger isn't being broke. The danger is being directionless. There is a difference between temporary lack and permanent passivity. A woman can stand beside a man who has little, if he's rising. It's the man who has no hunger, no structure, no edge, that slowly becomes invisible to her. So don't confuse simplicity with permission to settle. Don't flex. Don't perform wealth. But also, don't shrink your ambition in the name of being authentic. Develop competence, build skill, strengthen discipline. Become the kind of man who generates options, not excuses. Because when she says money doesn't matter, what she's really saying is this: I need to feel safe with your future. And safety, to a woman, is rarely about numbers. It's about trajectory. Number 3. I usually don't do this, but with you it's different. This line rarely comes randomly. It appears in moments of accelerated intimacy. Maybe things moved fast. Maybe boundaries dissolved quicker than expected. And right before, or right after, she says it. I don't normally do this. But with you, it's different. And your ego lights up. You feel selected, chosen, exceptional. As if you unlocked a secret level no other man could reach. It feeds something primal inside you. The desire to be the one who breaks through walls others couldn't. But slow down. When someone has to verbally announce their standards before breaking them, that's not purity. That's image management. This phrase is rarely about you being extraordinary. It's about her preserving the image of being selective. Women understand how men judge availability. They know how quickly labels form. So, before crossing a line, she installs an alibi. She frames the moment as rare, unique, emotional. She hands you a medal for earning something that may not be nearly as exclusive as it sounds. And here's the uncomfortable part. If a rule collapses within hours, it was never a rule. It was decoration. Principles that truly matter are consistent across circumstances. They don't evaporate because of chemistry. They don't bend because of charm. Real standards hold under pressure. So when she says you're different, ask yourself quietly, different from what? And based on what timeline? This is where men get trapped. You mistake performance for connection. You confuse speed with depth. You interpret access as intimacy. And once your ego gets involved, your judgment goes offline. You start investing emotionally at a rate the reality doesn't justify. You think you opened a private door. but sometimes you just walked through a revolving one. If she breaks rules in hours, those rules were decoration. That doesn't mean she's malicious. It means she understands perception. She knows how to protect her image while giving you the illusion of exclusivity. Your job isn't to accuse, it's to observe. Watch consistency over time. Watch how she behaves when the initial excitement cools. Watch whether her values remain stable when convenience disappears. Ego wants to believe you're the exception. Standards want evidence. Don't let flattery rewrite your discernment. Because real uniqueness doesn't need narration. It proves itself quietly, through repetition, integrity, and time. Number 4. My ex means nothing to me. She says it firmly, almost defensively. He doesn't matter. I'm completely over him. That's in the past. And maybe part of you feels relieved. Clean slate, no competition, no emotional baggage. But then his name keeps surfacing. In comparisons, in complaints, in subtle references woven into random stories. Understand this clearly. Indifference is quiet. It doesn't need reinforcement. It doesn't need repetition. When someone is truly irrelevant, they disappear from conversation naturally. When she repeatedly brings him up, even negatively, that's not detachment. That's unfinished processing. Here's the psychological layer most men ignore. Denial feels empowering. Saying he means nothing creates the illusion of closure. It allows her to feel strong, in control, unaffected. But emotions don't evaporate because they're dismissed. They go underground. And what goes underground doesn't die. It mutates. If she hasn't fully processed the betrayal, the disappointment, the humiliation, or the abandonment, you don't step into a clean relationship. You step into an emotional renovation project. This is where men fall into the hero trap. You see her pain. You want to be different, better, safer. You think, I'll show her not all men are like that. And slowly, without realizing it, you become the emotional repairman. You absorb her triggers. You navigate her distrust. You pay for wounds you didn't create. You're building something new while she's still healing something old. And here's the hidden danger. When you help someone heal, you don't always become the reward. Sometimes you become the bridge. You represent recovery, stability, therapy in human form. But once she feels strong again, once the bleeding stops, the association shifts. You remind her of the weak version of herself, the hurt version, the rebuilding phase. You cannot compete with a ghost that still lives in her nervous system. It's not about whether she loves you. It's about whether her body has fully detached from the past. Because trauma is stored somatically. It influences reactions before logic intervenes. If her ex still triggers emotional intensity, anger, contempt, obsession, that energy is active. And active energy shapes present behavior. So what do? You observe frequency. You observe tone. You observe whether his presence fades over time or lingers as a shadow. You do not volunteer to be someone's rehabilitation center. Compassion is noble. Self-sacrifice without awareness is costly. A woman who has truly let go doesn't need to convince you she has. You'll feel it in the absence of tension. If the ghost is still at the table, you are not alone in that relationship. Number 5. I want a nice guy. Almost every man has heard this, and almost every man has misunderstood it. When she says, I just want a nice guy, you translate it into something simple. Be agreeable, be supportive, don't cause tension. So you soften your edges. You over-accommodate. You swallow disagreements. You prioritize her comfort over your convictions. And slowly, without noticing, you disappear. Because in the male dictionary, nice often means compliant, low friction, easy to manage. In the female emotional system, nice means something very different. Nice does not mean weak. Nice means warm, but solid. Kind, but immovable when necessary. Emotionally available, but not emotionally dependent. Attraction requires polarity. Polarity requires structure, and structure requires backbone. When a man has no firm boundaries, no standards he defends, no calm authority in his voice, desire has nothing to push against. There is no tension, and without tension, passion dissolves. This is where good men sabotage themselves. They pedestal her too early. They overinvest before she's earned depth. They apologize for minor things just to maintain harmony. They think conflict avoidance equals emotional intelligence. But women do not fall in love with fans. They fall in love with men who respect them, without worshipping them. Let me say something that may sting a little. Kindness without strength is invisible. If your niceness comes from fear of rejection, she will feel it. If it comes from lack of options, she will sense it. If it's driven by anxiety instead of confidence, it loses its magnetism. Female tests are not random cruelty. They are calibration. She is subconsciously asking, is this man stable? Can he hold his ground? Does he crumble under emotional pressure? If you adjust your personality every time she shifts her mood, you communicate instability. And instability kills attraction faster than cruelty ever could. A truly nice man, the kind she actually wants, can be gentle and firm in the same breath. He can say no without raising his voice. He can disagree without attacking. He can walk away without drama. He does not beg for approval. He extends invitation. So when she says she wants a nice guy, don't shrink yourself into softness. Be warm, be respectful, be attentive, but keep your spine intact. Because kindness is powerful only when it is backed by strength. Number 6. I'm not like other girls. To a man who's been disappointed, this line feels like oxygen. You've seen the patterns, the drama, the emotional volatility, the games. So when she looks at you and says, I'm not like other girls, it lands like a promise of relief. Finally, an exception. But understand what's happening beneath the surface. This is positioning. It's branding. In a competitive environment, differentiation becomes strategy. And modern dating is nothing if not competitive. When she declares she's different, she is trying to separate herself from an invisible crowd before you've even gathered evidence. Real difference doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself. The moment someone has to verbally elevate themselves above a category, there's usually insecurity underneath. A fear of being ordinary. A fear of blending in. A fear that her actions alone might not prove her uniqueness fast enough. So she accelerates perception. She shapes the narrative before reality unfolds. And here's the deeper pattern tying all 6 of these phrases together. I'm not ready. Money doesn't matter. I don't usually do this. My ex means nothing. I want a nice guy. I'm not like other girls. Different words. Same mechanism. Image management. Each phrase creates a version of reality that feels softer, purer, safer than the raw truth underneath. And if you take them at face value, you build your expectations on air. Words create illusion. Actions reveal structure. A woman who is truly different won't need to say it. You'll see it in how she behaves when you disappoint her, in how she handles conflict, in how consistent she remains when emotions fluctuate, in how she speaks about people who aren't present. Uniqueness is discipline. Uniqueness is loyalty under pressure. Uniqueness is composure when ego is bruised. And that brings us to the shift you must make. Stop reacting to language. Start evaluating patterns. A wise man becomes an observer, not cold, not cynical, but steady. Like a lighthouse in a storm, not chasing waves, not arguing with the wind, simply standing firm and reading the current. A woman's words test your ego. Her actions test your standards. If you react to her words, your ego leads. If you evaluate her actions, your standards lead. So don't buy the brand before you inspect the product. Step back, slow down, watch. Because once you see the pattern, you can never be manipulated by the packaging again. Now step back and look at what we've uncovered. None of these phrases exist because women wake up planning to deceive you. They exist because people protect themselves, because image matters, because rejection feels heavy, because vulnerability is risky. These lies are rarely weapons, they are shields. But here is the part that matters. If you don't understand the mechanism behind them, you will react instead of lead. You will argue with words instead of evaluating patterns. You will invest based on hope instead of evidence. And that is how men lose years. You don't need to become cynical. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to distrust every sentence that comes out of a woman's mouth. You need to become steady. Stop arguing with her words. Start evaluating her patterns. Watch how she behaves when she's frustrated. Watch how she handles your boundaries. Watch what happens when you pull back instead of leaning in. Watch whether her actions align when the emotions calm down. That is where truth lives. A man who leads his relationships doesn't get hypnotized by softness. He doesn't get triggered by comfort phrases. He doesn't chase clarity when behavior already gave him the answer. He observes. He decides. He moves accordingly. Now I want to hear from you. Which one of these 6 phrases have you heard in your own life? And how did it end? With a lesson or with a loss? Write it in the comments. If this opened your eyes, subscribe. Stay here. Sharpen your awareness. And share this with a man who's still building his future on someone else's carefully packaged words. Remember this. Your standards will protect you more than her promises ever will. If you've ever asked yourself, why did she say that? Then do the opposite. This video is your answer. Women speak to protect themselves, not to reveal themselves. Their language is emotional camouflage. That's why you can't win by listening harder. You win by observing deeper. The moment you stop chasing clarity in her words and start reading her behavior, everything shifts. You stop guessing. You stop being confused. And you finally see what she really wants, even when she can't admit it herself. Men keep falling for language. They hear what a woman says and instantly assume it's truth. But here's the thing. Her words are not a window into her mind. They're a shield, a layer of smoke between what she feels and what she's willing to admit. In modern society, women are trained to say what sounds right, not what's real. They grow up learning to filter every statement through how it will be judged, by friends, by social media, by the world. When she says, "I want a kind man who listens," it's rarely a confession. It's a performance. What she actually means is closer to, "I want a man I can respect." A man strong enough to listen without losing himself. Words are safety. They let her sound good, stay likable, avoid criticism, but actions, those are unfiltered. When a woman says one thing and does another, she's not lying to you. She's lying to herself. Because deep down, her biology doesn't care about how things sound. It only responds to what makes her feel. That's why you'll hear her preach about loyalty, then flirt with chaos. You'll see her post quotes about good men, then spend her nights chasing attention from the ones she can't tame. Her words describe her ideal self, the image she wants the world to believe in. Her actions reveal her true self, the emotional creature driven by desire, status, and instinct. Every time you take her words literally, you enter her illusion. You start negotiating with a mask, and that's the fastest way to lose control, because you're no longer responding to reality, you're responding to her script. Behavioral psychology calls this the social defense mechanism. Humans, and especially women, use language to manage perception. It's not malicious, it's adaptive. But for men, it becomes a trap. You start believing that decoding her words will unlock her heart. It won't. Because her words were never the map to begin with. If you really want to understand a woman, don't analyze what she says. Observe what she repeats. Watch how she behaves when she's not performing, when no one's watching, when she doesn't think you're paying attention. That's when the truth leaks through. A woman might say she values honesty, but if she only responds to the thrill of danger, her nervous system already made the choice. She might tell you she wants a dependable man, but if she lights up only around those who challenge her, that's the data you trust. Men lose power not because they lack effort, but because they trust words over evidence. Remember this. Her words are the story she tells the world. Her actions are the confession she tells herself. Words are her mask, actions are her truth. From the time a boy learns to speak, he's told one thing. Listen to women. Respect their feelings. Hear them out. Don't interrupt. And so he grows up believing that listening means understanding. But that belief becomes a trap. Because when you take a woman's words at face value, you stop noticing the contradictions that reveal who she really is. Most men don't realize this. Women speak through emotion, not precision. Their language is fluid, responsive to the moment, shaped by mood and context. What she says at 9 a.m. might not be what she feels at 9 p.m. Yet you, the logical man, treat her sentences as laws written in stone. You analyze every text, every word, every maybe, searching for certainty, when she herself isn't certain. That's how men get lost. She says, "I'm not ready for a relationship," and you back off respectfully. 3 weeks later, she's dating another guy. You feel betrayed, but what happened isn't betrayal. It's biology. When she said those words, she believed them. But then someone triggered a new emotional response, and her behavior followed that, not the speech she gave you. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the tension between what we say and what we do. Women resolve that tension by rewriting their story, not by confronting it. They rationalize the new action and move on. Men, on the other hand, internalize it, assuming they did something wrong. This is the invisible manipulation of language. Not because she's scheming, but because her words naturally filter reality through feeling. Every "I don't know," every "I'm just confused" is an emotional snapshot, not a stable truth. And here's where men lose ground. You think listening will earn trust. You think agreeing will earn connection. But what actually earns both is your ability to stay grounded while her words shift. Never let a woman's language pull you out of observation mode. Don't argue with her contradictions. Map them. If she says she hates drama but lives in it, don't correct her. Note it. If she says she wants peace but keeps chasing tension, don't confront. Remember. Your advantage isn't in debating her version of reality. It's in seeing how her actions rewrite it. You can't out-talk a woman who speaks from emotion, but you can out-observe her by detaching from the noise of words and focusing on patterns. The moment you stop expecting her words to match her feelings, you reclaim your clarity. And with clarity comes control. Because here's the truth. Every word she speaks is filtered through emotion. If you listen instead of observe, you'll always be one step behind. Every man has heard it. Women want a nice guy, so he becomes one. He listens, he compliments, he supports, he waits. He gives without asking, forgives without boundaries, and thinks patience will turn into desire. But she doesn't fall for him. She thanks him. She trusts him. She even says, "You're such a good man." Then she walks away and gives her body, her energy, her chaos to a man who doesn't treat her half as well. This is the paradox of the nice guy. He believes kindness equals attraction, but in reality, kindness without edge equals predictability, and predictability kills desire. Here's what most men never understand. Attraction is not built through safety. It's built through tension. A woman's emotional system is wired for stimulation, not comfort. When she feels too safe, too certain, too in control, her instincts turn off. She starts to feel like the man in the relationship. That's why the bad boy wins, not because he's cruel, but because he's unpredictable, assertive, and emotionally autonomous. He doesn't wait for permission to be desired. He creates it by leading the emotional rhythm. Let's look at it from a behavioral perspective. When you're nice in the hope of being liked, you're not giving, you're negotiating. You're saying, I'll give you this comfort, this attention, this loyalty in exchange for validation. And women sense that trade instantly. It feels weak. It smells like fear. Now, contrast that with a man who doesn't chase approval. He gives when he wants to. He withholds when it's needed. He's capable of empathy, but not addicted to being liked. That tension, that sense that she can't fully predict him, keeps her emotionally engaged. She respects him because she can't fully control him. There's a story that repeats itself endlessly. A man meets a woman and thinks, if I just prove I'm different from other guys, she'll see my value. So he becomes the emotional butler of her life. He listens, comforts, helps her move furniture, fixes her problems. And when she finally feels whole again, she leaves. Not out of cruelty, but because she no longer feels drawn. He didn't lose because he wasn't enough. He lost because he was too easy to predict. In attraction, uncertainty is oxygen. A woman doesn't crave comfort. She craves emotional gravity. She wants a man who makes her feel safe but keeps her guessing. She wants a man she can respect more than she can explain. So when she says, I want a nice guy, hear it for what it is, a social script, not a desire. What she truly wants is strength wrapped in calm, not submission wrapped in smiles. Never confuse kindness with weakness. True power isn't in being agreeable. It's in being grounded enough to stay kind without losing your edge. She doesn't crave comfort. She craves the man she can't control. There's a hidden mechanism in every woman. A mental switch that determines whether she resists a man or devotes herself to him. I call it the good girl switch. And here's the truth most men never learn. You can't force it, you can't beg for it, and you can't buy it. You either trigger it or you don't. When a man earns a woman's admiration, something changes inside her. Her resistance fades, her nurturing instinct awakens, and she begins to want to give. Not because he demanded it, but because he commands it through presence. She starts cooking for him. She softens her tone. She becomes generous with affection and intimacy. And she doesn't do it out of obligation, she does it out of pride. Because pleasing a man she respects makes her feel more feminine. Most men try to earn this reaction by overgiving. Gifts, compliments, constant availability. But that never works, because the good girl switch only flips in the presence of a man she admires, not one she pities. A man who overcompensates looks like he's seeking approval, not expressing value. When a woman senses true masculine stability, calm dominance, grounded energy, direction without arrogance, her subconscious relaxes. That's when she feels safe enough to express her femininity. And femininity, at its core, is the instinct to give. Here's what's fascinating from a psychological point of view. Women are not happiest when they're being served. They're happiest when they're serving someone they respect. It activates a deep emotional pattern, the feeling of purpose, belonging, and emotional polarity. Contrast two men. The first one cooks, cleans, listens, does everything right. He's hoping that if he does enough, she'll finally appreciate him. The second man doesn't try to prove anything. He expects effort in return for his presence. He leads. He gives when it feels right, not when it's expected. She finds herself wanting to do more for him, to cook, to care, to please. Because through him, she reconnects with her feminine energy, and it feels good. That's why so many women who claim they want equality still find themselves happiest with a man who leads. It's not hypocrisy, it's biology. The good girl switch isn't about dominance, it's about polarity. Without polarity, there's no attraction, no passion, no emotional gravity. A woman doesn't become submissive out of weakness. She becomes nurturing when she feels she's in the presence of a man strong enough to hold space for her emotions without collapsing. Men who understand this stop chasing compliance. They build respect first, and affection follows naturally. You don't have to tell her to be good to you. You just have to make her want to. Because in the end, a woman doesn't submit to love. She submits to respect. There's a specific type of man women keep around but never touch. He's thoughtful, loyal, always available. He listens when she cries about another guy, gives her advice, and tells himself, one day she'll see I'm the one. But that day never comes. Because the moment you become her emotional cushion, you stop being her emotional trigger. And attraction doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in tension. Women often tell men, be patient, be nice, be her friend first. But that advice isn't meant to make you irresistible. It's meant to make you harmless. It keeps you safe to talk to, safe to lean on, but never dangerous enough to desire. That's the essence of the friend zone. She trusts you like family, but feels nothing primal toward you. Here's the psychological reason behind it. Female attraction is tied to polarity, the electric difference between masculine and feminine energy. When a man suppresses his sexual presence to appear safe, he unconsciously erases that polarity. He becomes neutral, emotionally flat, predictable, easy to manage. To her nervous system, that reads as no spark. Think about it. The man she complains about, the one who gives her headaches, also gives her butterflies. He frustrates her, challenges her, disrupts her calm. And that disruption keeps her emotionally engaged. It's the paradox most men never grasp. What irritates her also ignites her. Now compare that to the perfect gentleman. He does everything right, remembers birthdays, pays attention, shows up every time she calls. But because there's no tension, no challenge, she starts to see him as emotional background noise. The attraction fades before it ever begins. When she says, "You're such a good friend," that's not an invitation. It's a boundary. It means she feels safe around you because she doesn't have to navigate desire. It's not a compliment. It's the closing of a door. This is where most men fail, by taking female advice literally. When a woman tells you, just be patient, she'll come around. What she's really saying is, do the safe thing I would recommend if I were you. But that version of you isn't the man she desires. It's the version that makes her comfortable. You can't nice your way into attraction. Desire isn't negotiated through kindness, it's provoked through contrast. Men who escape the friend zone don't do it by trying harder. They do it by pulling back, by reclaiming polarity. They stop being her emotional service provider and start being the man she has to earn access to. Because here's the truth. Every time you act like her friend, you erase her desire. You reinforce the dynamic where she gives you validation instead of attraction. The only way to change that is to stop playing the role she wrote for you and start embodying the man she can't fully read. You don't need her permission to stop being her friend. You just need the courage to stop being predictable. By now, you've seen the pattern. What women say is often just a projection, an echo of what they want to believe about themselves. But what they do, that's where the truth hides. Most men keep asking the wrong question. What does she mean by that? A smarter man asks, what does she consistently do? because no matter how complicated her words get, her behavior never lies for long. The first step to decoding women is simple. Stop reacting, start observing. Silence is your microscope. It reveals what her language tries to blur. There are 3 levels of female behavior every man should learn to read. Level 1, immediate reaction. When you enter a room, where do her eyes go first? Does her body face toward you or away? Does her tone lift when she speaks to you, or does it stay flat? Attraction shows up in milliseconds, through eye contact, posture, micro-expressions. If she's drawn to you, her physiology betrays her before her words can intervene. Level 2, consistency. This is where most men fail. She says she's busy, but still watches your stories. She says she's not ready, but texts you late at night. She says she wants honesty, but disappears when you give it. Patterns always tell the truth. When her actions and her language don't align, trust the pattern, not the excuse. Level 3, investment. Who's moving the story forward, you or her? Does she reach out first? Does she plan things? Does she try to reconnect when you pull back? A woman's investment is the clearest metric of interest. When she truly cares, she invests her time, her effort, her emotional energy. When she doesn't, she replaces you with attention from somewhere else. Most men ignore these signals because they're busy chasing verbal reassurance. They want her to say she cares. But attraction isn't spoken, it's acted. It's in the way she leans closer when you speak. It's in the tone she reserves only for you. It's in the small acts of effort that no one told her to make. Learning to decode behavior isn't about control, it's about clarity. When you stop taking words personally, you stop being emotionally manipulated. You no longer need to guess. You see her patterns for what they are: information. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Don't chase clarity in her words. Read her patterns. Stop analyzing her speeches and start tracking her consistency. Actions are data. Emotions are variables. The man who studies patterns never gets blindsided. Once you master observation, you gain emotional freedom. You stop asking, "Does she like me?" because her behavior already answered. You stop chasing confirmation because you've seen the evidence. And when you operate from evidence, not emotion, you become the one in control. Her words can confuse you. Her tone can soften you. But her behavior, it tells you everything. You just have to be still enough to see it. Everything you've just heard comes down to one truth. Women don't deceive men. Men deceive themselves. They hear words, ignore evidence, and then wonder why reality hurts. A woman's words are not her promise. They're her poetry. Beautiful, emotional, inconsistent. Her actions, on the other hand, are primal. They reveal instinct, desire, and emotional truth far beyond anything she'll admit out loud. You'll never control what a woman says. You'll never decode every sentence or every mood swing. But you can master the only thing that matters, your ability to see clearly, to stop reacting to her emotions and start observing her patterns. That's where your power begins. When you operate from evidence, you stop living in confusion. You no longer need to chase reassurance. You no longer negotiate your worth. You simply watch, and the truth reveals itself. Here's what most men never realize. You don't have to confront her when her words and actions don't match. You don't have to punish her, argue, or demand honesty. You just have to stay calm, stay grounded, and watch. Her consistency will answer everything, because the truth always exposes itself to those who wait in silence. So next time she says one thing and does another, don't react, observe. You're not losing control, you're reclaiming it. If this video opened your eyes, subscribe. Because once you start decoding women instead of obeying them, you stop being confused and start being in control. That's the real awakening. Not resentment, not revenge, but clarity. Remember this line and keep it close. Words are polite, Actions are primal. Words can charm you. Actions will reveal you. Don't trust what she says. Watch what she does, and you'll never be fooled again. Here's the thing about lies. They're rarely perfect. No matter how carefully she chooses her words, her body will always give her away. You've seen it. A sudden swallow, a shaky voice, or restless hands she can't keep still. Those little glitches are not accidents. They're the nervous system spilling secrets the mouth wants to hide. And yet most men look right past it, desperate to believe what they're being told. That desperation comes at a price: time, dignity, and power. But you don't have to pay it. I'm about to show you 10 signs that cut straight through the mask. Watch closely, because the moment you learn these cues, you'll never fall victim to her lies again. As a psychologist and relationship coach, I've seen men lose years of their lives ignoring signals that were right in front of them. That's why I'm passionate about teaching you to spot these signs before it's too late. Hit subscribe now, drop a like, and share in the comments if you've ever noticed something subtle that didn't add up. Your story might resonate with another man watching right now. And in just a moment, I'll break down the very first sign, one you've probably overlooked countless times. Number 1. Swallowing. When a person lies, their body often betrays them before their words do. One of the most common giveaways is an unconscious tightening of the throat. Stress activates the body's fight or flight response, and when that happens, muscles around the esophagus constrict. This makes swallowing harder, so you may notice her taking more gulps than usual, even if she doesn't have a glass of water nearby. It's not about thirst. It's about tension she can't hide. Picture this. You ask her about a message you saw pop up on her phone. The room is quiet, her eyes dart for just a moment, and then, there it is, a dry swallow. Then another. She finally speaks, but the pause has already spoken louder than her words. These little physiological cues are rarely random. They're the body's desperate attempt to manage pressure when the mind is scrambling for a believable answer. Now, does that mean every swallow equals a lie? No. Sometimes people are nervous simply because of the confrontation itself. But here's the difference. If you see this reaction paired with other signs from this list, the chances increase that something is being concealed. Your job as a man isn't to call her out instantly. That's how you lose control of the conversation and hand her the emotional upper ground. Instead, stay silent. Watch. Let the discomfort play out. The more space you give, the more her body will reveal. Power doesn't come from accusing. It comes from observing, remembering, and letting the truth expose itself without you saying a word. Number 2. Licking the lips. When someone is under stress, the body reacts in subtle but telling ways. One of those is reduced saliva production. Her mouth dries out, and instinctively she moistens her lips or even bites them. To an untrained eye, it might look seductive. To a man who understands psychology, it's often the nervous system exposing pressure. Imagine this. You ask her about where she was last night. Instead of answering right away, she runs her tongue across her lips, maybe twice. She tries to continue talking, but her jaw tightens, her lips press together unnaturally. That dryness in her mouth isn't just physical, it's emotional tension manifesting in her body. Now here's the trap most men fall into. They confuse lip licking with attraction. She might even rely on that confusion. Because if you're distracted by what looks like flirtation, you won't notice the discomfort behind it. That's how lies slip past you, not through what she says, but through what you misinterpret. Does it always mean she's lying? No. Stress, fatigue, even an uncomfortable conversation can cause dry mouth. But when you see this alongside other signs, like a sudden swallow, a shift in tone, or restless hands, don't ignore it. Your move is simple. Don't react. Don't accuse. And definitely don't let your desire cloud your judgment. Pay attention to the pattern. Watch how often it happens and under what kind of questions. That's where the truth is hiding, in the consistency of her unconscious tells. Number 3. Answering with questions. When someone doesn't want to face the truth, one of the oldest tricks in the book is deflection. Instead of answering you directly, she throws the ball back in your court with another question. Psychologically, this is a stalling tactic. It gives her precious seconds to craft a believable story while making you feel like you're the one being unreasonable. You've probably heard it before. You ask, "Where were you last night?" And she fires back, "Why don't you trust me?" That's not an answer. That's a shield. The purpose isn't to explain. It's to flip the script, to put you on defense. If you bite, the conversation shifts. Suddenly, you're the one explaining yourself, defending your suspicion, while her lie quietly escapes the spotlight. This is more than a nervous tic. It's emotional manipulation. The goal is to make you doubt your instincts and back off from pressing further. Many men fall for this because they fear being labeled insecure or controlling. But that fear is exactly what allows deception to thrive. Here's your counter move. Hold the frame. Don't follow her question. Don't argue about whether you trust her or not. Instead, calmly repeat your original question. Do it without anger, without raising your voice. Just steady and direct. When you refuse to get sidetracked, she loses the advantage. Remember, truth doesn't need to hide behind another question. Only lies do. And if she consistently dodges with deflection, that's a clear sign she's not giving you the full picture. Number 4. Selective memory. Forgetting is human. We all lose track of small details from time to time. But when memory suddenly becomes foggy only around specific questions, that's not ordinary forgetfulness. That's strategy. Psychologists call this avoidance. Instead of telling a direct lie, she creates a gap in her story, a blank space where the truth should be. Imagine this scenario. You ask, "Who were you with after work?" She answers, "I don't really remember." Yet moments later, she recalls what she ate, what music was playing, even what shoes she wore. Conveniently, the only thing she can't remember is the detail that actually matters. That imbalance is the red flag. This tactic works because men often accept "I forgot" as harmless. It sounds less aggressive than a flat denial, and it buys her safety without committing to a lie. But make no mistake, when selective memory appears in the middle of an otherwise clear story, it's rarely accidental. Here's your role. Don't rush to argue, and don't fill in the blanks for her. Just listen. Take note of what she says, and, more importantly, what she avoids saying. Later, bring the same question back in a different way. If her answers don't line up, the cracks will widen on their own. The key is patience. Liars rely on your frustration, hoping you'll drop the subject. Don't. Stay calm, remember the details, and let her contradictions reveal themselves. Real memory doesn't collapse only where the pressure lies. That's where deception lives. Number 5. Skin tone changes. The human body is a terrible liar. When stress hits, it shows itself in places you can't control. One of the most revealing signs is a sudden shift in skin tone. Under pressure, adrenaline floods the bloodstream. Blood vessels either expand or constrict, and the result is visible. A face that goes pale in seconds, or flushes red out of nowhere. Picture this. You're having a normal conversation, casual and light. But the moment you touch a sensitive subject, where she was, who she was with, her complexion betrays her. Maybe her cheeks flare with color, or maybe all the warmth drains out and her face turns ghostly. She keeps talking, trying to act natural, but her body has already broadcasted the message, something isn't right. Most men ignore this. They think, maybe she's just embarrassed. And yes, embarrassment can cause the same reaction. But context matters. If the change happens instantly and only when the tough question lands, it's rarely coincidence. It's the body sounding the alarm. Here's your move. Don't call it out. The moment you point and say, "Why are you blushing?" you give her a chance to cover it up, to laugh it off. Instead, file it away. Let her continue speaking while you observe carefully. Often, that skin reaction is the purest truth you'll get in the entire conversation. The lesson here is simple. Words can be rehearsed, stories can be polished, but the body never rehearses its panic. Pay attention to the sudden change in her face. It's her nervous system confessing what her mouth won't. Number 6. Voice changes. The voice is one of the hardest things to control under pressure. When someone lies, stress interferes with breathing and vocal cords. You'll hear shifts in pitch, sudden cracks, or a pace that feels rushed and uneven. These aren't stylistic choices. They're stress signals. Imagine you ask her a simple but direct question. "Why didn't you answer my call last night?" She begins to reply, but her voice lifts an octave higher than normal, or it trembles just slightly. Maybe she talks faster, as if racing ahead of her own thoughts. Or maybe she stalls, dragging out syllables because her brain is working overtime to invent details. Whatever the form, the change in rhythm is the giveaway. Here's the problem. Many men let emotion drown out perception. They get angry at the words and miss the music underneath. But the voice reveals more than the sentence. A nervous system under stress struggles to maintain its usual tone. Even seasoned liars can't fully mask the sound of tension. Your move is patience. Instead of reacting to the story, pay attention to how it's told. Is her breathing shallow? Does her pace shift mid-sentence? Those subtle cues tell you more than the content. If her voice consistently falters only when certain topics are raised, that's not coincidence, that's exposure. Remember this rule. Words can deceive, but tone always betrays. Listen carefully, not just to what she says, but to how her body forces it out. That's where the truth leaks through. Number 7. Hiding the hands. Hands are more honest than words. When the mind is busy constructing a lie, the body often reveals the tension through the hands. That's why many people, especially under stress, instinctively try to hide them. They shove them into pockets, cross their arms tightly, or keep their palms pressed flat against a surface. It's not comfort, it's concealment. Picture this. You're sitting across the table, asking her about something that doesn't add up. Instead of gesturing naturally like she usually does, her hands vanish beneath the table, or she clasps them tightly together in her lap. She may even tuck them under her arms, as if she's bracing against exposure. These are unconscious moves. She's not planning them. They're her nervous system's attempt to keep from leaking the truth through involuntary gestures. Most men overlook this because they're too focused on her words or her face. But remember, liars fear their hands. Hands fidget, twitch, or reveal emotion without permission. That's why hiding them becomes a defensive reflex. Your move. Observe without reacting. Don't demand she show her hands or call out the behavior. That only makes her double down. Instead, note the shift. If she usually talks with open palms and now suddenly tucks them away, that change is telling. Combine that observation with other cues and the pattern becomes undeniable. The lesson is simple. Eyes may lie, words may mislead, but hands always tell the truth. And when those hands disappear, you should be asking yourself, what exactly is she trying to keep out of sight? Number 8. Pupil dilation. The eyes may be called the window to the soul, but in truth, they're windows to the nervous system. When stress strikes, your body releases adrenaline. That surge affects the pupils, causing them to dilate. Unlike words or gestures, this reaction can't be faked or rehearsed. It happens instantly and unconsciously, exposing what the mind is trying to hide. Picture this moment. You ask her about something she clearly doesn't want to discuss, maybe an unexplained gap in her schedule. As soon as the question lands, her pupils widen. The change is subtle, but if you're paying attention, it's impossible to miss. She may look away quickly or blink faster, trying to conceal the signal, but the dilation already betrayed her. This is where most men fail. They focus on what she says instead of how her body reacts. They hear the excuses, but they miss the eyes screaming with tension. A skilled liar may maintain eye contact, but even then, her pupils tell the story. The nervous system doesn't take orders from her narrative. Your move: observe quietly. Don't announce what you see, because then she'll adapt. She'll look away more. She'll dim the lights. She'll avoid eye contact altogether. Instead, store that detail. Notice when the dilation occurs, and under what kind of question. Patterns speak louder than isolated moments. The truth here is simple. The pupils can't lie. When they flare wider at the exact moment pressure is applied, you've just witnessed the body expose what the words desperately tried to conceal. Number 9. Eye movement. The eyes carry guilt long before the lips confess it. When a person lies, maintaining steady eye contact becomes a battle. Some dart their gaze from side to side. Others blink excessively or lower their head entirely to avoid the weight of your stare. These movements are not random. They are micro-escapes, desperate attempts to flee the tension without leaving the room. Picture this. You ask her directly, "Were you with him?" For a split second, she locks eyes with you. Then suddenly, her gaze shifts left, right, anywhere but straight ahead. She blinks rapidly, as if the air itself stings her eyes, or she drops her head, forcing you to look at her crown instead of her pupils. She keeps talking, but her silence is in the movement. Most men misinterpret this. They think, maybe she's shy, or she just doesn't like confrontation. But context matters. If she only avoids eye contact during lighthearted talk, that's one thing. If her gaze breaks only when pressure is applied, that's another. Patterns define intent. Your move: don't chase her eyes, don't demand she look at you. That only gives her more power to act. Instead, observe the shift. Compare how she behaves when she's relaxed versus when she's cornered by a tough question. The difference tells you everything. Remember, the truth doesn't flinch, lies do. And when her eyes scatter under your questions, it isn't just nerves, it's the body trying to run from the very answer she refuses to say. Number 10. Nervous fidgeting. Before you get the wrong idea, this isn't about intimacy, it's about nervous energy escaping through restless movements. When someone lies, the stress has to go somewhere, and often it leaks through the hands. She may twist a ring, fiddle with her phone, tug at her sleeves, or run her fingers through her hair over and over. Sometimes she rubs her own arms, almost as if she's comforting herself. These aren't just quirks. They're coping mechanisms. Picture the scene. You ask her about an inconsistency in her story. She insists she's telling the truth, but her hands won't stay still. She spins her bracelet, taps her nails, or keeps brushing her hair behind her ear. The words are confident, but her body is restless. That contradiction is the signal. Most men dismiss these gestures as feminine habits. They assume she's just being playful or distracted. But when the timing lines up, when the fidgeting starts exactly as the tough question lands, you need to pay attention. The body is offloading tension that the voice is pretending doesn't exist. Your move is observation, not accusation. Don't grab her hands or call her out. Just notice. The more she fidgets when pressed, the clearer the picture becomes. Combined with other signs, like shifting voice or darting eyes, this pattern reveals far more than her words ever will. The truth is simple. Calm hands belong to calm minds. Restless hands belong to someone fighting a story they don't fully believe themselves. And when her hands won't stop moving, it's rarely just coincidence. Here's the truth. These 10 signs are not here to turn you into a detective with a magnifying glass. They're here to give you awareness, to hand you back the power that so many men surrender in silence. A single sign on its own doesn't prove deception. People blush, fidget, or forget details for countless reasons. But when patterns appear, when 3, 4, 5 of these signals start lining up, you'd be foolish to ignore them. Remember, deception thrives not because she is clever, but because you are blind. Most men miss what's right in front of them because they're too focused on words or too afraid of confrontation. They want to believe so badly that they let their instincts rot. Don't make that mistake. Awareness doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you prepared. But let me be clear. This isn't about policing her every move. It's about strengthening yours. The real lesson isn't just spotting lies. It's learning how to stay calm when you sense them. A man who explodes in anger hands over his control. A man who observes, remembers, and connects the dots keeps the upper ground. That's the man who cannot be manipulated. So here's my challenge to you. Stop ignoring the red flags. Start trusting what your eyes, ears, and instincts have been telling you all along. Don't wait until the truth destroys you. Step into the role of a man who sees clearly, who stays steady, and who refuses to let his emotions be used against him. If this message opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, share this with a man who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below. Which of these 10 signs have you seen before but overlooked? Because the truth belongs only to those who are willing to face it. And today, you've taken one step closer to being that man. Most men don't realize they're being used until it's too late. They think they're building a connection, when in reality, they're being fed sweet little lies designed to keep them on standby. If you've ever felt like you're giving more than you're getting, or you've wondered why she keeps you close but never fully chooses you, she's not confused. She's playing a role. And there are 9 specific lies women tell when they want your time, your attention, and your energy, without giving you commitment, respect, or loyalty. Once you recognize these 9 lies, you'll never fall for them again. You'll see her intentions clearly. You'll stop being the backup plan, and you'll finally take your power back. Let me show you the truth behind every one of them. There's a reason these lies work so well. They're not random, and they're not accidental. Each one comes from a deeper instinct most women won't admit, and once you understand that instinct, everything about their behavior suddenly aligns. You'll start noticing details you've never seen before. Tiny cues, emotional shifts, the exact moment her intention changes. That's the power of understanding the pattern. If you want to hear the truths most people avoid, like this video and subscribe. Now let's unravel the first lie and show you what's been operating underneath the surface. Number 1. I'm over my ex. When a woman tells you she's over her ex, most men want to believe it. It sounds clean, easy, and convenient. But from the perspective of a woman who has watched this pattern play out more times than she can count, let me tell you something you won't hear anywhere else. A woman only says she's over him when she's still fighting the feelings she hasn't dealt with. That sentence is not closure. It's a shield. Women hate emotional emptiness. They fear that hollow space that opens up after a breakup. So instead of sitting with the discomfort, they reach for the closest warm body who can soften the fall. That body is often yours. You become the emotional cushion, someone who fills the silence, someone who listens, someone who makes her feel wanted again. But here's the part men ignore. You weren't chosen because of your value. You were chosen because you were available. So pay attention to the signs she can't hide. If she keeps bringing him up, even in negative ways, he still holds power. If she sends vague, sad quotes after arguments, that's not expression. That's unresolved attachment leaking through. If she's warm one moment and distant the next, you're not building something real. You're being used to soothe her swings. And here's the truth you need to hear. If her ex is still living in her head, you won't have a home in her future. Your job isn't to heal what another man broke. Your job is to recognize when you're being pulled into someone else's emotional debris. Ask yourself one question. Is she investing in you, or is she borrowing your presence to quiet the noise in her own mind? You're not a distraction. You're not a bandage. And you were never meant to be the painkiller for a wound you didn't create. Number 2, we don't need labels. When a woman tells you she doesn't want labels, she isn't trying to create a romantic, free-spirited love story. She's creating a safety net, one where she gets full access to you without giving you anything solid in return. And yes, I'm going to say it plainly because most men refuse to see it. No labels is never about protecting the relationship. It's about protecting her options. Think about what she does, not what she says. She lets you pick her up, take her out, be her emotional support, act like a boyfriend in every way that benefits her. But the moment you ask the simplest, most reasonable question, what are we? She smiles and hides behind that soft, careful excuse. Why ruin what we have by labeling it? That line isn't wisdom. It's strategy. Women use the gray zone to stay in control. As long as nothing is defined, she can edit her involvement at any time. She can pull you close when she needs validation, and then push you away the moment another man catches her attention. She keeps you warm, but she keeps her escape route warmer. Here's the part you need to absorb without flinching. If she wanted you, she would claim you. When she avoids labels, she's avoiding you. A woman who sees you as her man doesn't fear commitment. She fears losing you. She deletes her dating apps. She stops entertaining other men. She doesn't dodge clarity. She invites it. So what should you do? Set a timeline, not as an ultimatum, but as a standard. If we're going to act like a couple, it needs to become one. And if she still refuses clarity, then you stop giving her the privileges of a girlfriend. In love, ambiguity always favors the person who's less invested. Don't let that be you. Number 3, you're different from other guys. This line is pure sugar, and that's exactly why men fall for it. Every man wants to feel chosen. Every man wants to believe he stands out. And women know this, intimately. When a woman tells you you're different, she's tapping straight into the part of you that craves significance. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If she truly felt that way, she wouldn't need to say it. You would see it in her actions. Women use this line as ego bait. A soft nudge to make you lean in a little closer, try a little harder, chase a little more. It gives you a high, a dopamine hit that feels like connection, but is really just validation dressed up as intimacy. It's a reward without commitment and a promise without effort. Pay attention to the contrast most men ignore. She compliments you, but she flakes on plans. She tells you you're unlike anyone she's ever met, but she disappears for days. She insists you're special, yet shows up only when it fits her convenience. That's not admiration. That's strategy. And here's the truth you need to stop running from. If you were really different, she wouldn't have to say it. You'd feel it. From a woman's perspective, this line is a lever. It lets her control the pace of the connection without giving you anything real. She knows men chase harder when they believe they're winning. She knows you'll forgive inconsistency if you feel chosen. So she feeds your ego just enough to keep you hooked. Don't fall for the words. Look at the investment. Look at the consistency. Look at the effort she makes when she doesn't need attention or comfort. If the words and actions don't match, don't chase harder. Step back. The woman who truly sees your value won't flatter you into staying. She'll show you through presence, not performance. Number 4, I don't care about money. When a woman tells you she doesn't care about money, she usually says it at the exact moment your card is already sliding across the table. It's a comforting statement for a man to hear, almost noble. You want to believe she's with you for who you are, not what you can provide. But from a woman who has watched other women play this game for years, let me be brutally transparent. The women who claim they don't care about money often care the most. Watch her behavior, not her branding. She lights up at 5-star restaurants, but goes dull at the suggestion of a simple walk in the park. She's always in the mood for rooftop cocktails, but mysteriously exhausted when you propose something low-key. She never offers to split, even symbolically, because in her mind, that's your role, not hers. She wants the lifestyle, the image, the access, the experience, and you're the one funding the highlight reel. Some women don't want a man. They want an upgrade. Here's the truth that separates a woman who values you from a woman who values your wallet. A woman who genuinely doesn't care about money never chooses based on who pays. She chooses based on who stays. A woman who is with you for you will show it in subtle but powerful ways. She'll suggest budget-friendly dates. She'll offer to cover small things, coffee, snacks, a ride share, not because she needs to, but because she wants to contribute. She'll match your effort with her own, not sit back waiting for the next luxury you're willing to hand her. So test the dynamic. Suggest a simple date. Watch how quickly her enthusiasm shifts. If stripping away the glamour makes her lose interest, then she wasn't interested in you at all. And remember, a woman who only shows up when you're spending is a woman who's spending you. Number 5. I don't usually do this. When a woman tells you she doesn't usually do this, she wants you to feel like you've unlocked some rare, hidden version of her. It's a seductive illusion, one designed to make you believe you're the exception, not the pattern. But here's what most men don't realize. This line is a script, a carefully crafted performance to lower your guard and speed up your trust. Women know exactly how powerful it is to make a man feel chosen. They know that if you think you're the one who brings out a special side of her, you'll relax your boundaries, give more freely, and stop questioning the pace of the connection. Suddenly, something that should take time happens too quickly. Intimacy, favors, emotional closeness, and you convince yourself it's organic, not strategic. But look at her behavior. If she says it with confidence instead of nervousness, that's not vulnerability, it's delivery. If she uses the line right after you spend money, offer help, or give her attention, that's not honesty, it's reward. And if she says it early, often, or conveniently, she's not revealing her innocence. She's manufacturing your comfort. Here's the truth you need to sit with. Women who truly don't usually do this don't announce it. You feel it in their hesitation, their awkward laughter, their genuine shyness. Authentic vulnerability is quiet. Manipulation is polished. So what should you do? Slow the pace. Observe. Notice whether her actions match the supposed exception she's claiming. Does she deepen the connection afterward, or does she pull back once she gets what she wants? Does she show real emotional depth, or just enough softness to hook you? A woman who wants you will be honest with you. A woman who wants something from you will perform innocence like it's a practiced role. Don't fall for the script. Look for the sincerity behind it. Number 6. I just need space, but I don't want to lose you. When a woman says she needs space, most men hear honesty. They assume she's overwhelmed, stressed, or simply figuring herself out. And maybe part of that is true. But the second half of her sentence, but I don't want to lose you, that's where the manipulation sits. Because what she really wants isn't distance. What she wants is control. Women use space to explore options without fully letting go of the comfort you provide. It's a bench strategy. You're not in the game, but you're not allowed to leave the stadium either. She wants the freedom to see who else might show up, while making sure you're still there if things don't work out the way she hopes. Look at her behavior, and everything becomes clear. She says she needs time, but still texts you whenever she's bored or lonely. She says she needs distance, but still expects you to answer her calls. She says she's sorting through her feelings, yet you'll see her posting subtle hints meant for another man. She's not confused. She's keeping her options open. And here's the truth you've been avoiding. Space without boundaries is not space. It's a strategy. From a woman's perspective, this line keeps you emotionally available while she emotionally checks out. She knows you're loyal. She knows you're patient. And she knows you're hoping that giving her time will make her choose you. But what it actually does is make her feel safe enough to drift further away. So what should you do? Make the boundaries explicit. If she needs space, she gets real space. No daily calls, no comfort on demand, no emotional labor. And if she refuses to set a timeline, you set one for yourself by stepping back altogether. You are not her backup. You are not her bench player. If she wanted you, she wouldn't risk losing you in the first place. Number 7. You deserve someone more amazing than me. When a woman tells you this, it sounds gentle, even noble. Men hear humility. They hear vulnerability. They hear a woman who feels unworthy of them. But from the perspective of a woman who understands what sits beneath this line, let me translate it for you. This isn't humility. It's an exit wrapped in flattery. It's rejection dipped in sugar, so it goes down smooth. Women say this when they want distance without the guilt that comes with directly turning a man down. They don't want to look like the bad person. They don't want confrontation. And they definitely don't want to lose the benefits of your presence, your support, your attention, your emotional availability, while they quietly search for someone who excites them more. Watch the pattern. She calls you an amazing guy, but she doesn't choose you. She says you're husband material, but she keeps you in the maybe later category. She praises your kindness, but she saves her effort, her time, and her desire for someone else. Those aren't mixed signals. That's deliberate ambiguity. And here's the truth you must stop running from. If she thought you were amazing for her, she would choose you, not excuse you. From a woman's point of view, this line protects her ego and preserves yours, just enough to keep you orbiting. It keeps the door cracked open so she can slip back in if her other plans fall apart. She wants the option of you without the responsibility of you. So what should you do? Believe her. Not because she's right about your worth, but because she's telling you she doesn't want to be the woman who stands beside you. Don't argue. Don't convince. Don't prove anything. Step back, reclaim your energy, and leave her to the choices she's already made. You don't win a woman by waiting. You win by walking away from the ones who hesitate. Number 8. You just get me. When a woman tells you this, it feels intimate. It feels meaningful. It feels like you've unlocked a part of her no one else can reach. But here's the truth from a woman who has watched countless men fall into this trap. You just get me rarely means she wants you. More often, it means she wants a place to drop her emotional baggage without offering anything real in return. Women love to feel understood. It makes them feel safe, validated, seen. But the mistake men make is assuming emotional closeness equals romantic interest. It doesn't. A woman can unload her trauma on you, share her insecurities, rant about her ex, complain about her co-worker, and still have zero desire to be with you. In fact, the more she vents without giving anything back, the more likely it is you've been placed into a role she won't acknowledge out loud, the emotional tampon. Look at the signs she won't verbalize. She sends you long texts about her bad day, but never asks about yours. She trusts you with her secrets, but never invites you on a real date. She calls you when she's falling apart, but never when she's excited to see you. She gives you emotional intimacy while withholding physical or romantic intimacy, because she wants comfort, not connection. And here's the truth you need to swallow whole. You're not her safe place. You're her emotional storage unit. Women can separate emotional reliance from romantic attraction with surgical precision. She'll keep you close enough to soothe her loneliness, but far enough to never owe you anything. That's not affection. That's convenience. So what should you do? Stop playing therapist. Stop responding instantly. Stop offering support she hasn't earned. If she wants a man, she'll move toward you. If she only wants relief, she'll drain you. A woman who truly values you won't only share her pain, she'll invest in your life, your joy, and your time. Number 9. I'm not ready for a relationship right now. When a woman says she's not ready for a relationship, most men take it at face value. They assume she needs healing, or time, or space to figure herself out. But here's the reality from a woman who has lived long enough to see this play out repeatedly. Not ready doesn't mean she isn't ready for love. It means she isn't ready with you. Women don't delay relationships with men they're truly drawn to. When she meets a man she feels chemistry with, emotionally, physically, mentally, she doesn't need time. She doesn't need clarity. She doesn't need to work on herself. She jumps. She chooses. She invests. She shows up. So why does she tell you she's not ready? Because she wants the benefits of your presence without the responsibility of commitment. You become the emotional comfort, the convenient companion, the reliable support system, while she keeps her heart open for the man she's actually waiting for. Look at her behavior. She still texts you when she's bored. She still asks for favors. She still enjoys your company. But mention exclusivity, and suddenly she gets vague. Bring up commitment, and she becomes foggy. Ask what she wants, and she offers philosophical answers that mean nothing but keep you hopeful. She's not confused. She's buying time. And here's the truth you need to hear without sugarcoating. She's ready the moment the man she truly wants appears. So what should you do? Stop acting like her boyfriend when she refuses to treat you like her man. Pull back your energy. Invest proportionally to the clarity she gives you. When she says she's not ready, take her at her word. Not because she's honest, but because she's telling you exactly where you stand. A man with self-respect doesn't wait in someone else's emotional lobby. He walks out and chooses himself. When you look at all 9 sweet lies together, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. These aren't random phrases women throw around without meaning. They're signals. They're strategies. They're soft, polished ways to take what they want while giving as little as possible. And if you've heard even one of them more than once, it's not because you're unlucky. It's because you've been dealing with a woman who never truly intended to choose you. But here's the part I want you to sit with. Not as judgment, but as clarity. You can't control what a woman says. You can only control what you accept. Most men stay stuck because they cling to the words instead of watching the behavior. They cling to potential instead of reality. They cling to hope instead of respect. And that's how good men get drained, bit by bit, excuse by excuse, sweet lie by sweet lie. So let me reframe this in the most honest way a woman can. You don't lose women by having standards. You lose the women who plan to use you. And those aren't losses. Those are escapes. Think about the version of you who's been overextending, giving time, attention, effort, loyalty to someone who would never match it. Think about the energy you've poured into women who kept you waiting, wandering, second-guessing yourself. Now imagine what happens when you stop accepting breadcrumbs and start demanding consistency. When you stop falling for sweetness and start listening to truth. When you choose clarity over confusion every single time. If this hits something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment so other men know they're not alone. Like the video if it opened your eyes. Subscribe if you're done being the easy target. And share this with a man who's stuck in the same cycle you just broke. You deserve honesty. You deserve loyalty. You deserve a woman who shows up, fully, consistently, willingly. And I'm here to make sure you never settle for. You think women play games with silence, mixed signals, or sudden distance. But the truth is, they start playing you long before any of that happens. It begins with 4 simple words, so soft, so harmless, that you never question them. And that's exactly why they work. Every man has heard these words. Almost none understand what they reveal. If you've ever found yourself waiting, hoping, overthinking, or fighting for clarity that never comes, chances are these words were used on you, not to inform you, to shape you. In this video, I'm exposing the 4 words women say right before they pull you into a dynamic where she holds the leverage and you lose control. And once you see what these words really mean, you'll never fall into that trap again. Language is the quietest weapon a woman will ever use, and the most efficient one, because it leaves no fingerprints. Most men look for signs in her actions, the distance, the mixed signals, the sudden drop in warmth. But what they miss is that a woman rarely starts with behavior. When she wants to influence the dynamic without taking responsibility for it, she uses a single, well-chosen word. And that word shapes the entire emotional frame you operate in. This is what psychologists call framing. One word can bend your interpretation without you noticing. She says it softly, casually, as if it means nothing. But inside that tiny syllable is the real question she's asking. How much can I steer you without ever pushing you? Imagine a man who keeps hearing a woman tell him she's busy. He takes it at face value. He thinks she's overwhelmed, tired, managing life. What he doesn't see is the calibration happening underneath. She's not measuring her schedule, she's measuring him. Every delayed reply, every vague excuse, every small withdrawal. It's all data. She's watching how far you'll bend, how quickly you'll chase, how easily your standards dissolve when you think you're being patient. Women test not because they're cruel, but because they're wired to look for the man who leads himself. A man who anchors. A man who doesn't drown in the emotional tide the moment she shifts the current. That's why the 4 words you're about to learn matter so much. They're not random, they're tools. Each one categorizes you. Are you self-governing? Are you insecure? Are you easy to guide? Are you impossible to move? Let me show you the 4 words women use when they're not choosing you, but want you to keep choosing them. Number 1, busy. When a woman tells you she's been so busy lately, most men hear a schedule problem. They think she's juggling work, stress, family, life. But when a woman is genuinely interested, she doesn't become less available. She becomes resourceful. Busy isn't about time. It's about priority. And the moment that word slips out too often, she's not revealing her workload. She's revealing where you sit in her hierarchy. Here's what most men never notice. Busy is a form of control through inconsistency. She shows up just enough to keep you hoping, but not enough to give you certainty. That unpredictability triggers something powerful in the male brain: intermittent reinforcement. The same psychological mechanism that keeps people addicted to slot machines keeps men addicted to women who give attention in short, unpredictable bursts. She's not consciously thinking, "Let me condition him." But she is absolutely watching what happens when she delays the reward. Do you wait longer? Do you try harder? Do you shrink your needs to fit her rhythm? Now imagine this. A man texts her good morning. No reply. He checks his phone at lunch. Still nothing. By evening, he tells himself, she's just busy. The next day, she suddenly responds with warmth, a cute emoji, maybe even a voice note. His brain lights up like he won the lottery. He didn't. But the contrast between absence and attention creates the illusion of value. The more he invests, the busier she becomes. The moment he pulls his energy back, she magically becomes free again. From a woman's perspective, there's a simple truth. When she wants you, she doesn't get less available. She gets creative. She finds 2 minutes. She sends a quick note. She makes effort visible. Women who truly desire a man fight for space with him, not excuses. But men make one critical mistake. They think patience is attractive. They think waiting shows loyalty or maturity or emotional strength. It doesn't. To a woman testing your boundaries, waiting is submission. It tells her she can ration her presence and you'll still stay. So how do you break the busy illusion? You don't confront her. You don't chase clarity. You don't explain your feelings in a 3-paragraph text. You simply reduce access. You match her distance without hostility. You remove the reward she expected, your attention. When she realizes she can't trigger you by pulling away, the entire frame collapses. The space she created to test you becomes the space she fears losing. Because indifference is the only language that breaks the busy illusion. And when you stop serving her delays, you stop being controlled by them. That's the moment the power shifts. Because you're no longer competing for her time. She's competing for your presence. Number 2. Maybe. A woman says, maybe I'll let you know. And most men hear possibility. What she actually gave you is suspension. A soft, subtle cage that keeps you emotionally available without requiring her to commit. Maybe isn't a doorway. It's a holding pattern. It keeps you circling while she decides whether you're worth landing for, or whether someone else has already earned the runway. Picture the moment. You ask her out on Saturday. She smiles through text, drops a maybe, and disappears for 48 hours. Then suddenly, she posts a story, laughing in a car that isn't yours. Most men try to be polite. They tell themselves not to pressure her. They wait, thinking patience will eventually be rewarded. But to a woman, waiting doesn't read as respect. It reads as compliance. Maybe serves one purpose, maintaining control of the pacing. She gets to check her options, her mood, her convenience, while you stay emotionally parked, hoping the coin flips your way. That imbalance is where she evaluates you. Not your looks, not your money, your boundaries. Here's the truth many men don't want to hear. When a woman wants you, she doesn't gamble with the chance of losing you. Maybe only shows up when she's unsure, uninvested, or unwilling to close the window completely. And this is where men trap themselves. They double text. They soften their tone. They send another friendly invitation. They try to look easygoing, patient, understanding. They don't realize that every extra ounce of effort reinforces her power. The more you wait, the less she feels she has to choose. Let me give you a familiar scenario. A man spends days hanging on a maybe. She never gives a date. She never gives a time. She never gives a plan. But he keeps checking his phone, interpreting silence as progress. Meanwhile, she's keeping him on emotional standby, just in case the men she really wants don't follow through. You were never the priority. You were the insurance policy. So how do you break out of the soft cage? You treat maybe as a closed door. Not with anger, not with attitude, but with clarity. A simple shift. Let me know when you're sure, and then you step back. You stop offering time she hasn't earned. You stop scheduling your life around her uncertainty. You stop proving yourself to someone who hasn't chosen you. Something powerful happens when a man no longer waits. The illusion dissolves. A woman can't keep you in limbo if you refuse to live there. Suddenly, she must decide, commit or lose access. And for the first time, she feels the cost of her ambiguity. A woman can't cage a man who refuses to wait. And when you treat your time as valuable, she's forced to decide whether she actually wants a place in it. Number 3. Friend. There's a moment every man remembers. The moment a woman looks at him with a soft smile, tilts her head, and says, "You're such a good friend." It feels harmless, even flattering. But inside that single word lies the sharpest downgrade a woman can deliver without ever sounding cruel. Because when she calls you friend, she's not bonding with you. She's labeling you. Women categorize men faster than men realize. Within minutes of meeting you, she places you in one of 4 boxes. The man she feels attraction for, the man she respects, the man she can use, and the man she can confide in without ever having to choose. Friend is that last box. It means you are safe, but not desired, valued but not chosen, present but not claimed. And here's the unspoken translation. You give me emotional benefits without requiring emotional commitment. Let me paint the picture. A man answers her late-night messages. He listens to her stress, her drama, her heartbreak. He gives comfort, reassurance, guidance. He thinks this closeness is building intimacy. What he doesn't see is that she leaves those conversations lighter, and then goes to another man to feel excitement. He becomes her emotional outlet, her therapist, her cushion, everything except the role he actually wants. From a psychological standpoint, this is emotional labor, something women deeply value, but something they also learn to take for granted when it costs them nothing. When you give attention, empathy, presence, and availability without boundaries, she consumes it like air, effortlessly, unconsciously, endlessly. The mistake men make is believing that the more they give, the more desirable they become. But attraction doesn't grow from service. It grows from distance, direction, and self-respect. The moment you make yourself the solution to all her emotional discomforts, you erase the polarity that makes her see you as a man rather than a support system. So how do you escape this trap? You don't try to earn her interest. You don't increase your efforts. You reduce them. You stop replying instantly. You stop absorbing her drama. You stop playing the role she assigned you without your consent. Not to punish her. Women aren't the enemy. But to reset the dynamic she unconsciously pushed out of balance. Here's what happens when you remove access. Her emotional pattern breaks. The comfort she relied on disappears. And suddenly, she has to reevaluate who you are. For the first time, she sees you not as a cushion, but as a man with structure, a man who doesn't let his desire override his dignity. You don't escape the friend zone by loving harder, you escape it by stepping out. And when you stop being the place she unloads her emotions, you become someone she has to notice, not someone she simply uses. Number 4. Soon. Few words keep a man stuck longer than this one. We'll hang soon. I'll text you soon. I'll be ready soon. It sounds optimistic, gentle, almost promising. But soon is the most sophisticated stall tactic a woman uses when she wants to hold you in her orbit without offering you a place in her world. It's a future that never arrives, because it was never meant to. Soon pacifies you. It keeps you emotionally invested while she keeps her options open. It lets her preserve the illusion of interest while contributing nothing concrete. From a psychological standpoint, this is temporal delay reinforcement. She feeds you hope, so you overlook the reality. Her actions aren't matching her words. Let me give you a picture every man has lived through. You ask her when she's free. She smiles through text and says, "Let's plan something soon." A week passes, then 2. Suddenly it's been 21 days, and the closest thing to a real plan is that single dusty promise still sitting in your message thread. Meanwhile, she's out living her life, posting stories, meeting people, exploring possibilities that don't include you. Not because she hates you, but because she doesn't fear losing you. And that's the part men struggle to see. Soon is what she says when she wants to keep the door cracked just enough to step through if she ever wants to, but not enough for you to step in. Women use soon for 2 reasons. She doesn't want to invest in you, but she doesn't want to lose you either. You become her emotional reserve, her maybe later, her backup plan in case the men she's actually pursuing fail to deliver. And most men, driven more by hope than reality, let themselves believe the delay means nothing. They interpret vagueness as patience and patience as virtue. But hope without evidence isn't loyalty, it's self-abandonment. So how do you break the spell of soon? You withdraw from the fog and demand clarity through action, not emotion. The moment she uses that word, you step back, not dramatically, not angrily, just decisively. You don't chase the promise. You don't wait for the next breadcrumb. You simply treat soon as a sign she hasn't made a real choice. And you stop offering the comfort of being an unclaimed option. A future that is real has a date, a plan, a place, a time. Something you can point to and say, this exists. If it doesn't exist, it isn't your future. It's a placeholder she's using to manage your expectations. And here's the shift she never sees coming. The moment you stop accepting vague promises, you stop being the man she can indefinitely delay. That's when respect enters the room. Because you're no longer a passenger waiting for her timeline. You're a man with boundaries, momentum, and direction. A woman may delay a man who follows her pace, but she never delays a man who sets his own. And once you stop letting your life sit on her soon, she has to either step forward or step out. She didn't use those 4 words to describe her situation. She used them to measure yours. Busy, maybe, friend, soon. None of them reveal her schedule, her intent, or her availability. They reveal your reaction. Because every time she drops one of those words, she's not just speaking. She's observing. She's watching what you do with uncertainty, with distance, with ambiguity. That reaction tells her everything about where you stand in the hierarchy of men. Here's the loop most men never recognize. She uses the word. You interpret it emotionally. You adjust your behavior around it. She evaluates the adjustment. Your value is silently redefined. That's why the real danger isn't the word itself. It's how quickly you surrender your position when you hear it. A woman doesn't lower your value. She lets you show her how low you're willing to place yourself. I've seen this unfold countless times. A man sits across from me, confused, frustrated, convinced he's been played. When I walk him backward through the dynamic, he realizes something painful. The control she had was the control he gave. Busy made him try harder. Maybe made him wait. Friend made him serve. Soon made him hope. 4 tiny words shaped an entire relationship simply because he never questioned their framing. But that same man can transform his reality the moment he stops reacting and starts observing. The moment he hears a vague word and doesn't personalize it. The moment he stops contorting himself to fit a woman's inconsistency and instead anchors into his own standards. This is the shift, from reacting to leading, from seeking reassurance to becoming the reassurance, from needing clarity to creating it through action. Women don't respect a man who needs certainty from them. They respect the man who carries certainty within himself, the man who doesn't flinch at ambiguity, the man who doesn't overinvest in unclear signals, the man who doesn't let language, soft, subtle, strategic, bend his value. Control isn't taken. It's returned the moment you stop surrendering it. And when you stop folding under those 4 little words, you stop being the man she can test, stall, or downgrade. You become the man she has to choose intentionally, or lose completely. You've now seen the truth most men never catch. The 4 words themselves were never the threat. The real danger was how easily those words could pull you out of your center. Busy controlled your time. Maybe controlled your hope. Friend controlled your role. Soon controlled your future. Each one redirected your focus away from your own value and toward her approval. That's why so many men feel drained, confused, or unchosen, not because they lacked worth, but because they kept reacting to signals that were never meant to guide them. When you stop responding the way she expects, the entire dynamic changes. You're no longer the man waiting for clarity. You're the man who creates it. You're no longer the man adjusting himself to fit her uncertainty. You're the man whose standards force others to rise or fall away. And when a woman realizes she can't move you with words, that's the moment she begins respecting you. Not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated it. So if these 4 words have ever held power over you, let this be the turning point. Choose self-control over self-doubt. Choose direction over delay. Choose yourself over the fantasy of what she might eventually give. Because the moment you stop surrendering your emotional authority is the moment you take back everything you thought she took from you. If this opened your eyes, subscribe for more. Hit like and share it with the men around you. Someone you know is stuck in one of these patterns right now. And if you want a breakdown tailored to your situation, leave a comment below. I'll tell you exactly what she's signaling and exactly how to take your power back. When you master your reactions, you master the relationship, and that is where control truly begins. She doesn't confess because you confront her. She confesses when you stop reacting. The truth doesn't leak under pressure. It leaks under calm. Every man who's ever begged for honesty made the same mistake. He thought intensity would bring clarity. It never does. The louder you ask, the quieter the truth becomes. But there's a method, a psychological rhythm, that makes a woman reveal more than she planned to. It's not about being harsh. It's about being unreadable. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how silence, awareness, and emotional control work together to expose what words can't hide. Because once she feels you've detached, her truth becomes her only way back in. Have you ever noticed how her version of events always sounds reasonable? Not exaggerated, not emotional, just reasonable enough to make you doubt your instincts. That's the art of perception control, the most subtle form of manipulation there is. See, women rarely lie to deceive. They lie to stabilize, to protect how you see them, to keep the emotional atmosphere safe, and to make sure they don't lose leverage. A woman's truth is always filtered through emotional safety. It's not about facts. It's about preservation. When she senses tension, when she feels your tone shift or your presence tighten, her brain doesn't say, "I'm about to lie." It says, "I need to protect the peace." That peace isn't about harmony. It's about control. She wants to manage your emotional reaction before you even realize you're reacting. Imagine this. You ask, "Where were you last night?" She looks you dead in the eye and says, "I was just with some friends, nothing serious." Soft voice, calm tone, perfect pacing. Every piece of that answer was designed, not to deceive, but to contain. Because the truth isn't about what happened. The truth is about what she wants you to feel. That's why her words sound so clean, so logical. They're built like armor. Every sentence, every gesture, every pause is calculated to keep you where she wants you, uncertain, but not suspicious. You'll sense something is off, but you won't know why. You'll feel a dissonance between what she said and what your gut knows. And that's the exact space she needs to maintain her control. Here's the real psychology behind it. When a woman feels emotionally cornered, she doesn't fight. She redirects. She rewrites the moment to make you question your perception instead of her honesty. It's an instinctive form of narrative protection, the same mechanism that allows her to soothe, manipulate, and survive simultaneously. So when you hear her answer and it sounds perfectly balanced, perfectly convenient, don't just listen, observe. Notice how her tone is too calm for the context. Notice how she smiles when she shouldn't. Notice how her eyes shift, not with guilt, but with calculation. She's not lying to you. She's managing your perception. And as long as she believes you're still operating in the dark, still trying to understand her instead of reading her, she'll keep doing it. Because it works. Because you make it easy. Because she knows you're focused on what she says, not why she's saying it. The illusion of honesty isn't built on lies. It's built on your blindness to emotional strategy. If you want the truth, you have to first change what she perceives you already know. Because the moment she thinks you're aware, the entire narrative starts to crack. Women don't tell the truth because you demand it. They tell it when they believe you already know. That's the quiet rule of feminine psychology. Honesty isn't a moral choice. It's a safety mechanism. When she senses you're naive, she edits reality. When she senses you're aware, she edits herself. You see, perception is leverage. The person who appears more conscious of the unspoken dynamic always holds control. Most men fail here. They show their confusion, they chase for clarification, they let their tone reveal uncertainty. Every question, every emotional reaction tells her exactly how much she can hide. But when your energy changes, when you stop chasing details and start observing patterns, the game shifts. She begins to feel it. Not because you said something clever, but because your silence, your posture, your focus all communicate one message. I see through this. Women are hypersensitive to perception. It's an evolutionary trait. Reading emotional cues was survival. So when you stop acting reactive, her brain can't predict your next move. That uncertainty unnerves her. She doesn't know what you've seen or what you've figured out. And that's when the walls start to crack. Try this once. When she gives an answer that doesn't sit right, don't confront it. Don't demand proof. Just pause. Let your eyes rest on her longer than she expects. Tilt your head slightly, as if you've connected something. Then say calmly, "You don't need to explain. I already see what's going on." That sentence alone rewires the conversation. You've just flipped the power dynamic without raising your voice. You've made her subconscious panic. Not out of guilt, but out of uncertainty. Because suddenly, she realizes she's not leading the narrative anymore. You are. The psychological term is anticipatory compliance. When someone believes another person holds hidden information, they unconsciously reveal more than intended to protect themselves. She'll start softening her tone, filling the silence with details you didn't ask for, even correcting herself mid-sentence. She's trying to close the gap between what she said and what she thinks you know. That's the invisible shift you need to master. You don't win the truth by confrontation. You win it by changing the environment in which deception feels unsafe. And here's the thing most men never understand. When a woman feels you already see her, she loses the emotional incentive to hide. Because the lie no longer gives her power, it exposes her weakness. So the next time you sense dishonesty, don't react. Don't seek confirmation. Just act like the man who already knows. Watch how quickly her story rearranges itself in real time. The moment she senses you already know, her lies start to collapse on their own. That's the quiet dominance of awareness. No aggression, no threats, just presence. But awareness means nothing if you don't know how to weaponize silence. Men talk to find answers. Women talk to hide them. That's not cynicism. It's behavioral psychology. When emotions run high, men look for logic. Women look for control. And words are their control mechanism. The more they speak, the more they can redirect attention, redefine tone, rebuild safety. That's why the man who learns to be silent becomes the most dangerous one in the room. Silence makes people confront their own truth. It's a mirror, and most can't handle their reflection. Here's what happens inside her mind when you stop talking. Cognitive dissonance. Her brain hates the emptiness. The stillness feels like exposure, as if your silence is stripping away her story. So she fills the gap. With words, with nervous laughter, with unnecessary explanations. That's when the cracks start showing. Imagine this moment. You ask her something once, calm, steady, clear. Then you stop. No sighs, no frowns, no repeated questions. Just presence. The pause stretches longer than she expects. Seconds feel like minutes. She starts to feel your silence pressing against her skin. And then she speaks again, softer, quicker, correcting herself. That's not conversation. That's confession. Most men ruin their leverage by breaking the silence first. They can't handle the discomfort. They think persistence equals strength. It doesn't. Persistence is loud insecurity. Power, in its purest form, is restraint. When you stay quiet, your silence becomes a pressure cooker. It amplifies everything she's trying to hide. The more she senses you're unbothered, the more she feels exposed. Because she can't read you. And that unknown is terrifying to someone who survives by reading emotion. Silence also signals something primal: emotional detachment. It tells her you're not desperate for reassurance. You're not waiting for her validation. You're simply watching, evaluating, choosing what to believe. That's when she starts revealing the truth. Not because you demanded it, but because your silence forced her to face it. And it's subtle. It's not about making her uncomfortable for sport. It's about letting her run out of scripts. Every manipulative narrative relies on dialogue, on your participation. Once you stop feeding it, it dies. Your silence breaks her performance. Your composure exposes her inconsistencies. Your calmness makes her panic. This is the paradox. You don't get honesty by chasing it. You get it by holding still long enough for it to surface. Because silence isn't weakness. It's the sound of a man who already knows. And when she starts talking too much, that's where the next truth hides, buried inside the overflow of her own words. She suddenly gives you a full timeline, even when you didn't ask. Where she went, who was there, what time she left, what she wore, every small detail delivered with perfect precision. It sounds honest, it sounds open, but it's not clarity, it's camouflage. That's the paradox of deception. Guilty people over-communicate. Because when someone's telling the truth, they speak simply. They answer directly. They don't perform. But when someone is hiding something, they start building a cushion of words. A verbal fog dense enough to make you lose focus. Psychologically, this is called information flooding. It's an unconscious defense mechanism triggered by fear of exposure. When her brain senses threat, the possibility that you've noticed something, it scrambles to build narrative control. The logic is simple. The more context she gives, the less you'll notice the core inconsistency. And it works. On the untrained ear. That's why your role isn't to listen harder. It's to listen smarter. Here's how you do it. When she talks too much, stop tracking the details and start tracking the distance. How far her words are drifting from the question you asked. If her story doubles back, loops around, or adds random justification, she's not explaining. She's distracting. That's your red flag. You'll notice micro-tells too. Her tone will shift between calm and defensive. She'll smile too long, fill silence with, "You know what I mean," or overshare about things that don't matter. She's not opening up. She's buying time. Every unnecessary detail is an emotional bandage trying to cover a wound she doesn't want you to see. So, instead of confronting her mid-sentence, just nod. Let her finish the monologue. Then repeat her main point back to her, short, cold, stripped of fluff. "So you're saying you just went there, talked for a bit, and came home." You'll feel it, the tension drop in her voice, the hesitation that follows. Because your summary just killed her cushion. The truth has nowhere left to hide. Here's what most men miss. You're not in a conversation. You're in a narrative negotiation. The more she talks, the more information she leaks. But your power is in what you don't respond to. Every time you let her drown in her own words, you give her enough rope to hang the lie herself. So listen differently. Not to what she's saying, to what she's avoiding. If her answers get longer than your question, she's building a wall, not a bridge. Guilt always speaks in paragraphs. Honesty speaks in sentences. And if you can hear that difference, you're already holding the power she's trying to protect. But the real shift happens when you change the frame of the entire conversation. Most men beg for honesty, Leaders command clarity. That single difference changes everything. Because the moment you ask for honesty, you've already surrendered emotional power. You're admitting that your peace depends on her truth, and that gives her the upper hand. She now controls the tempo, the tone, and the tension. You've made her the gatekeeper of your calm. Think about it. When you say, "I just need to know the truth," you're not being strong. You're confessing attachment. You're saying, "My sense of self depends on your validation." And that's the perfect cue for her to tighten her control. But when you shift the frame, everything changes. You stop playing defense and start setting the emotional terms of engagement. Instead of needing the truth, you define the conversation around clarity. You're not begging, you're assessing. You're not reacting, you're observing. You're showing her, silently, that you have the emotional stability to move with or without her cooperation. Say it once, calmly. "I don't need to argue. I just need clarity to move accordingly." That line lands harder than any accusation, because what she hears underneath isn't threat, it's detachment. It tells her, "You no longer control how I feel." That's when the panic starts, because every manipulative dynamic thrives on your emotional dependence. When she realizes she's lost that anchor, she starts reaching. She re-explains, reframes, backtracks, desperate to regain narrative control. You'll notice it in her body language. The pause before she answers, the sudden softness in her tone, the searching eyes trying to gauge how much you know. You haven't raised your voice or changed your expression, but you've changed the entire ecosystem of communication. The psychological principle is called frame control. In any human interaction, the one who defines the frame defines the reality. And when you hold your frame, calm, clear, detached, her manipulative scripts start to fail. She can no longer pull you into her emotional rhythm. You're outside the game, watching it play out. That's why the most powerful men aren't the ones who argue well. They're the ones who refuse to participate in emotional tug-of-war. They don't chase truth. They make truth chase them. When you reach that level, you stop reacting to lies because they can't survive in your presence. You've removed the oxygen of emotional tension. And without that, manipulation suffocates. So remember this. Clarity isn't something you get from her. It's something you create for yourself. Once she senses that, she realizes something deeper. She's not the one holding power anymore. And once you emotionally detach, she has nothing left to hold on to. The more you care, the less honest she becomes. Not because she's cruel, but because your emotions give her a mirror. And she's learned how to use it. Women read emotion like a second language. They feel the tension in your silence, the tremor in your voice, the hesitation behind your words. And once she senses that her truth affects your peace, she learns something dangerous. Your feelings are her leverage. This is where most men lose control. They confuse love with surrender. They think caring deeply means reacting quickly. But emotional exposure isn't connection. It's currency. And once she knows you'll trade peace for answers, she'll never stop testing how far she can push the exchange. Emotional detachment changes that completely. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop depending. You stop letting her emotional storms dictate your internal weather. You become the eye of the hurricane, calm, steady, unmoved, while everything around you spins. Here's what happens next. When you detach, her control mechanisms fail. She can't provoke you with silence. She can't guilt you with tears. She can't manipulate you with confusion. Because now, every emotional tool she's ever used lands flat against your composure. And that stillness terrifies her. Because a woman's emotional influence depends on reaction. When she loses that feedback loop, when her words no longer trigger you, She feels invisible. And invisibility to a woman means loss of power. So she does what every human does when they feel power slipping away. She reaches for truth. She starts explaining herself. She starts clarifying unasked questions. She confesses, not because she wants to, but because she's trying to re-establish connection through honesty. Her truth becomes her peace offering. It's not manipulation anymore, it's instinct. Because when your emotions no longer belong to her, she must rebuild trust the only way she can, by being real. That's why emotional detachment is the ultimate lie detector. It creates silence without saying a word. It makes dishonesty uncomfortable, transparency inevitable. It forces her to face herself, not through confrontation, but through your calm. Detachment is not coldness, it's awareness without attachment. You're not punishing her, you're protecting your peace. You're showing that your value doesn't rise or fall with her approval. And in that moment, something profound happens. She finally sees what you've known all along. When you stop needing the truth, she finally tells it. Because that's not manipulation. It's emotional awareness. It's the quiet mastery of a man who doesn't chase honesty because his presence demands it. You don't get the truth by chasing it. You get it by becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to. Because when you finally understand the psychology behind her words, the safety, the control, the emotional choreography, everything changes. You stop reacting to what she says and start observing what she protects. You stop being led by confusion and start leading through clarity. Let's take a moment to remember what you've learned here. You now understand why she bends the truth, not to deceive, but to maintain control. You've learned that awareness, not aggression, exposes the lie. You've mastered silence, the invisible mirror where truth reveals itself. You can now hear guilt inside over-explanation and calm inside sincerity. You've learned how to shift the entire frame, taking back control of your emotional narrative. And above all, you've seen that the highest form of power is detachment, because nothing exposes truth faster than indifference to it. That's the transformation. You move from the man who demands honesty to the man who commands it. You stop chasing reassurance, and you start leading the dynamic. You stop reacting to emotional chaos, and you begin to set the temperature of every room you walk into. That's the difference between being emotionally reactive and being emotionally sovereign. Between playing her game and mastering your own. So the next time you sense something off, don't panic, don't press, don't plead. Just breathe. Watch. Stay silent. Because she'll either tell you the truth or she'll expose it trying to hide it. You don't force the truth out of a woman. You evolve into the man she can't lie to. And if this message hit you, don't just watch, learn, subscribe, comment your story below, and share this with a man who still chases answers instead of control. Because in this game,